Hey everyone, welcome to the Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson. I have the beautiful visionary teacher, artist, Autumn Skye Morrison with us today, the owner of Autumn Skye. Is it art? Autumn Skye Art, right, Autumn? Welcome.
Yes, well, it's me and my art are synonymous and one nebulous entity. So yes, Autumn Sky is yeah,
Is
our
appropriate.
banner.
Is appropriate. I love it.
Yes.
I wanted to share a quote with the audience because it touched me so much, and I feel like it's so relevant to the work you're doing and the work we're doing for humanity at this time. Humanity is going through such a massive shift and change. I think a lot of truth is rising. I think the veils are thinning, and people are connecting more to their cosmic consciousness and heart. So I'm going to read this real quick, and then we can maybe deep dive into a delicious conversation. He wrote, while the world is at the precipice of change, artworks can be maps to help guide humanity forward into positive ways of seeing and being. I believe that artwork has the potential to be maps, and those maps can help guide humanity forward into new and positive ways. I offer my artwork as a mirror, both an intimate personal reflection and a grand archetypal revelation. Within these visions, may each viewer recognize their own sacred heart, cosmic divinity, and through this recognition, may we witness the innate grace that dwells within and remember our way home. I just find that to be so, so beautiful. And so tell me, what has been the heart behind what you're bringing to the world? And can you speak to more of the mirror that your art creates for the viewer?
Well, since my earliest memories, I had this drive, this sort of innate propulsion of creativity and mission. I had this knowing without even knowing it intellectually or being able to articulate it, but this just understanding that I was here to make art and to share it with a lot of people. I didn't know what that would look like, and I didn't even know the term artist as something that was outside of my own reality. It wasn't like I had this dream of being an artist when I grew up. It was that I just knew what I was here to do, and I was very, very blessed. And not a day goes by that I take it for granted. Very blessed with a family that supported my creative path. So there was always art supplies available to me, even if it was just scrap paper and hand-me-down colored pencils.
Yeah.
There was always something available to play creatively and visually. And my focus always seems to have been primarily of humans. So I was always drawing people, and though I dabbled in dragons and animals and landscapes, people always kept my fascination. And even as a very young child, I remember like looking at people's faces in the world around me and at my family and people we'd meet, and we traveled quite a bit. And so just looking at faces and trying to understand what makes us different and what makes us the same. You know, we're all basically oval shaped face with a nose shaped nose and eyes shaped eyes and a mouth shaped mouth. And how could it be that so much universality can manifest in such different and unique ways? And so I just was always very captivated and admired all the variations, the subtleties that made us different, and also the things that made us innately human. And so as I grew and followed my art path and it was encouraged to do so, um, it it just naturally evolved to creating paintings that I truly believe are mirrors. And I believe that all paintings are mirrors, really. It's not that my work is special or unique in that way. I believe that music can be a mirror, and dance performances can be a mirror, and a sunset can be a mirror, and the world around us is constantly mirroring back to us our state of mind and our spiritual well-being and our beautiful and tragic journey as humans and as living beings on this planet, as this in this finite moment of time. And so just as these paintings can portray that, our beauty or our tragedy, I've really kept the concept of that theme alive as I work, and try to honor the viewer in that, and to offer reflections that can be uplifting and empowering, and remind the viewer of their own beauty and their own spiritual journey back to wholeness and fullness. So
I love that. I also feel like you're such an intuitive, artist. And when you're in that space, that requires full trust and faith in what's coming out onto the canvas. I wanted to ask you if that was something you had to really learn to trust, or if there was always an innate trust in what you were pouring out. Sometimes the ego mind gets, like a little bit in the way, and you're doing it or creating it, and you're like, I don't even know, this doesn't make sense in a way, but it's coming forth, it's being birthed, for a reason, in that order or in that way.
That's a process that has definitely been a huge theme in my life and in my work. It's my art has taught me so much of how I want to walk in the world, how I want to live from a space of trust and heart-centeredness. And so it's the template for me for that, for sure. And I believe that because art has been my companion and my teacher for my entire life, that it has taught me how to trust my spirit and my body in my daily life. And it plays out on a regular, for sure. So yeah, it's like sometimes, I'll be working on a painting and I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle yet. And that's okay. And though I might, grasp at whatever idea of like, oh, what is it that the figure is looking at, or what's going to happen in the background, or should I take this leap of faith, even though it feels scary? When I can just surrender and relax into the process and actually work on what I do know, rather than grasping for what I have yet to know, then all the pieces come in a perfect time. I'm a strong critic of the concept of weighing pros and cons. And I often advise friends against it and students against it as well.
I can only live from my heart and intuition, so I can only follow my inner compass, even when it makes no sense to anyone else.
Exactly. Like we can write lists and they can be, you could have 36 pros and one con, and that con can be, it feels wrong in my body. And that's the way we need to go. We need to trust that. And if you subscribe to kinesiology and muscle testing, what you're talking about, that inner compass, that is my guide. And that is like, I feel in my body when an idea comes and it feels right. Sometimes I'll bounce the idea off of friends or my husband or my mom and be like, oh, I'm going to take this leap of faith in my painting. What do you think? And sometimes they give me like that healthy voice of reason of like, that sounds like really risky or big. But especially in those times when it's reflected back to me of like, ooh, that's risky. And my heart says, yeah, but it's necessary.
And that's why it's a yes.
Yes. Right. I have one of those leaps of faith happening today, actually. I've been working on a painting to honor my dear sister, Rebecca, who passed recently. And so I've been working on this painting, and it's black and white with the gold is this theme I've been working on for many years.
Of like, these paintings. Amazing. That gold just pops against that Those
The
muted
soft grays.
tones. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful theme to work in. There's so much drama and
Mhm.
tenderness in those color combinations, and I just love the gold with the gray. And so I've been working on this painting. I've like many hours in. I don't even know, maybe 100 or 300, I don't know.
Wow. This
But
is like a labor of love right
it's a
now.
labor of love. There's a lot of detail. And so as of today, my plan, I've been sitting with it for a few days and just like keep checking in, is to add red.
Whoa. Back
So
and
I was like,
forth.
whoa, okay, here we go. And so, but it just feels like she was bold. She was a
I
fierce
feel like that was a nudge
warrior.
from her directly. Like she's like, hey,
She's
girlfriend,
like,
don't play it safe here. We're
yeah,
gonna go
she would
bold.
never. She'd be like, fuck yeah, do it. So that's what I'm
My
going to do.
God.
I'm going to dive in with that.
Oh
And
my gosh. It's gonna be
so,
amazing.
yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah. This is all such a mirror for what's happening, I feel, with the collective, because I feel like the collective is starting their journey back to their self and their soul. And that journey is fraught with challenge, but also really encourages us to have that inner knowing, to come to center, to truly check in all the time, and then trust what you get. You wouldn't believe how many people have come to me in my practice or just friends that go, well, I feel like I should do this. And then they go the complete opposite direction. And I'm like, that's gonna cost you,
Yeah.
But I'm not attached. It's like, okay, well, we'll see how that works out. But I'm really trying to encourage people always to come back inward and really trust that inner knowing and inner guidance, because your soul knows the way always.
And even I do trust though, like even if they ignore that whispering of their soul or their spirit or their body, and
Mhm.
they go against that and with the norm or with the advice of their family or with the pressures of society, and they do that and they choose against that inner compass, I
Mhm.
believe that that's still our spirit.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not in a place yet where they can fully integrate that learning and that knowing, and so they still have tools to gather along the way. And maybe, hopefully not, but sometimes it takes the universe or spirit or our body speaking a little louder to us and saying, I said, and then we have to circle
Right.
back. And so it's
Right.
this like this concept that comes up in painting as well, of like when I teach, so often my students will be like, oh no, I messed it up, I made a mistake.
Mhm.
And I
Are there any
remember,
mistakes though, really?
no, exactly. I remember in high school, I was maybe in grade 11, and I was really lucky and blessed in high school to have a great arts department and a great teacher that was a huge support to me. He just set my grade at 98.5%, and he said, do whatever you want. Because
Wow.
he knew I would do a lot more art if I wasn't confined by, he would give me challenges, but he wouldn't
I
give me
love
assignments.
that.
It was
I love
great. And so we had a pottery department within the art class. And I remember one time I was working on a bowl, and I had this big bowl on the wheel, and I was spinning, and I was like really sort of excited about this like beautiful big bowl. And just one little thing, like my mind wavered or my hand twitched or something, and the whole thing just went and like spun
Oh,
into this sort of like bleh. And I was like, oh man. And he just happened to be walking by at that moment. He's like, oh, no, 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 it's great, keep going. I was like, what? And he said, just play with the mistake. And so then I started to actually like take and pull those folds, and then I started carving into them, and that actually informed a whole sort of series of pottery experimentation that I did, of like
wow.
actually purposefully flipping the edges. And so that really stuck with me. That's like just this little moment of like, no, 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 just like be with that moment and see that there are actually, what mistakes are to me are there doors being flung open and us being pushed through them that we wouldn't have even touched the doorknob otherwise. So what is the vista in front of us now? It's
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
So maybe it just is a matter of like doing our due diligence and backing up through the doorway and closing it carefully and like repainting a whole section that we made a mistake. But even in that, there's learning. Even in that, there's new understanding and new care and skill development and everything. But there could also be a whole grain of possibility that could take us on a journey that we don't even know yet. So it's, yeah, staying open, staying curious, I think is a big key in the creative and living
Curiosity,
process.
and then also again, like having that knowing that maybe there are no mistakes. Like I kind of live with that premise that
Mm.
everything is really a lesson, a gift, an opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I really try to encourage the people that I work with or people in my life to embrace is that we have been conditioned and programmed to be so critical of ourselves and our journey and mistakes, perceived mistakes, because I don't believe there are any really. When everything has just been a gift of learning to me. And this is such a perfect example of that, where you can take something that feels tragic in the moment, but really turn it into an open door, like you said, where you can actually reframe how you're relating to it and then create something masterful from there. Whether it's yourself, your soul, your evolution, your art, your music, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if we can reframe how we relate to our past or our air quote mistakes, we can really open a lot of doors and opportunities to ourselves to grow.
Yeah, we can take risks too. I often say to my students that no great invention or great piece of art or breakthrough was ever created by playing it safe. And so if your spirit is calling you for something, listen and take that leap and know that you will be held in it. And maybe it's not going to look like you think it's going to look, but there's always, I believe, always a grace available there when we trust and surrender and dive in.
That's so hard for people,
It's really hard.
right? You have
I
to,
don't take it for
it
granted
took,
for sure.
it took me a long time to really trust my knowing. And even if it made sense to no one, to still say, I'm going that direction.
Mm.
Even if I'm not going to be accepted or included or called crazy or whatever, because I'm very intuitive and, work with energy and things that people can't really touch, feel, or really understand because they don't have a concept of it.
Mm.
So I had to really be willing to be okay with the judgment or the fear that was projected on me because I was choosing a different path. And I think it's important, or I feel it's important for every person to do it anyway, because our calling here is to come forward as our fullest expressed self, authentic self, right?
Mm.
And I think you're such a beautiful example of that because you take risks and you are bold in your choices with your art. And I wanted to ask you about this really beautiful calling or pulling that you've had towards Mary Magdalene, because I feel like so much is emerging right now in terms of her being not just a wife, but an equal to Jesus and partner in his teachings. And I loved that piece that you painted of the both of them, really. But I wanted to know a little bit more about your connection to that, to the travels you took that kind of sparked your interest in that subject matter. And almost it feels like an energetic synergy with her being so fearless and bold. And, maybe you could share a little bit about your journey with that.
Yeah, I think meeting and coming to know Mary Magdalene or the energy that she represents is, in a way, a coming home to my own womanhood, my own femininity, um, the like the path of compassion and also the path of like fierce mother. Um, it's yeah, it's a beautiful and unfolding path, like a rose. It's very fascinating that she is like so represented by a rose. It's like there's so many layers to it, and layers that I'm still getting to know and understand. But yeah, I was raised Christian. I was brought up in the church. I grew up singing in the worship team, and my grandpa was a minister, and
Wow,
it
you're
was
really in it.
very much in it. And even still, throughout it all, um, it I always had a pretty clear and I'd say healthy skepticism of the church as an institution. I was totally down with Jesus. I thought he was super cool and I liked everything that he said, and it seemed like really, really good. But I feel like the church and the sermons that would happen around like his quotes and his message just sort of was missing the point. And even at a young age, I remember having discussions or debates with my family of like, it just doesn't make sense to me that I was born in this family in Canada, raised by like Christians, that I get to go to heaven. Whereas, like, what about the kids in India or in Africa that never got to hear about Jesus? And so they're going to go to hell? Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all. And don't you think that whatever name that they give God is just as valid and just as true in their hearts and spirits as the name that we give God? And do we have to argue about names? And so
I
that
love
was
that
sort of
you're having that conversation so young. That was your innate knowing, that divine knowing coming through it. You know, they say out of the mouth of babes, right?
yeah. Well, it definitely like it always just struck me as like we're starting weird wars over semantics. It's all just semantics, and like whether one person gives the infinite creative force of the universe one cute name or another person gives it another cute name. I don't think God or energy or spirit or Allah or whoever, like whatever name, I don't think that innate creative force really cares that much what little like written label we give it, or whether we capitalize it or
I,
not in the
I,
written text.
I,
So that was sort of the beginning.
yeah, that was the spark. I think also that we have to be really honest that a lot of information has not been truthful.
Exactly. And
It's
so
been
that
manipulated to create fear and
Mhm.
control for the masses. And so a lot of people are basing their beliefs on maybe things that aren't fully presented.
Yeah, it's definitely it's distorted. And
Mhm.
a lot of it is like I truly believe in the goodness of people. I think that, you know, most missionaries really just care deeply about other humans and they wanted to save them from the eternal fires of hell. Like,
Right.
it's just like we care deeply. It's just like if we read a book that really affects us, we want to tell all our friends because we love we
Sharing.
we are love and we want to share. And so
Mhm.
I think that like the motivation is not necessarily that bad. It's just that there's been distortion. There's been, whether the manipulation has been purposeful or not, many would argue that it has been, and to the point that there have been books that have been removed from the Bible, and namely those books that include the story of Mary Magdalene and
Mm.
the books that were written by Mary Magdalene. So, as it's surfacing now, in 2016, the Vatican officially apologized for calling Mary Magdalene a whore for the last couple hundred years.
I was shocked by that
Yeah,
and like
pretty
cheering
wonderful.
at the same time because I think that is so powerful, right? That
Yes,
admission, that
it was
admit.
it was specifically a certain pope that purposefully combined her story with the prostitute who washed Jesus' feet with her hair. So it was very purposeful that it was distorted, and those stories were woven together. And so they haven't gone to the extent yet of admitting or enlightening the masses that Mary Magdalene was in fact Jesus' wife, and sacred tantric lover and mother of his children. Right. It hasn't gotten that far yet, but they did give her a cute holiday in July 22nd as the Feast of Mary Magdalene. That's lovely. And so we get to party in her name. But it's coming to the surface. And I think that it's so much of like the rise of the goddess, the rise of the femininity, the balance of masculine and feminine, the balance of our own internal light and shadow, of just getting to know ourselves in such a deeper way. Men coming into balance with their feminine and with their healthy, beautiful, divine masculine also no longer feels, in so many ways, no longer feels threatened by the power of the feminine and the mystery of the feminine. And so both can come back into balance, and women can come back into balance of like, okay, in order to be a strong, empowered woman, I don't necessarily need to put on a pantsuit and become the CEO. In order to be a strong, empowered woman, I can actually be in my mother, in my like receptive feminine grace, and that is power. My listening, my intuition, I can dress that up however I choose, but I don't need to become masculine in order to be an empowered feminine. And in order for a man to be sacred masculine, he doesn't need to become the overly sensitive, feminine version of a man. Right. We all are those blends of the masculine, feminine, and we are an alchemy that's always going to be changing and always going to be evolving. And however we choose to portray that, whatever pronoun we choose, whatever costume we want to wear, however we want to paint our face or wear our hair, is irrelevant to this inner weaving and ebbing and flowing of listening and action, in breath and out breath. And it's a dance, and it's going to completely continue to unfold and evolve. And I think that that's really one of the main gifts of Mary Magdalene coming into our consciousness at this time, is the permission for the balance. They say that together, Mary and Yeshua created Christ consciousness, that she was actually, she wasn't a whore. She wasn't, she was actually a wealthy priestess who supported and funded much of Yeshua's mission, and that she was his number one. She was his closest ally and disciple.
She was an equal.
And so together they create that Christ consciousness. It's not available to one polarity without the other. It has to, for life, it has to be in breath, out breath. We can't just only do one.
Right. I agree fully. Also, that inner power, that divine feminine power, isn't so much about being the divine feminine or the divine masculine. I think it's really us fully embodying our source and soul self in all that we do, in all that we are, in how we walk through the world. That is the true innate power of our being and our soul and cosmic connection to our higher aspects of self, source, whatever you want to call that. That's the power. And when you can tap in and align with that, everything external to you is just a reflection of that, and everything you create is an expression of that. So we don't need to prove anything, chase anything, have a label on anything. We just are our purest essence. And I feel like that is, if everybody could bring their energy back in and stop projecting everything out, the world would be such a better place. Because when you bring your energy in and do your shadow work and you do your inner soul work to become the best version of you here expressed in human form, your soul divine self expressed here in human form, I feel only authenticity and love and truth can be expressed. So every person who can make that connection, I feel, is a gift, and adding their essence and frequency to the collective. And that's my hope, that many more will come online and be able to have the courage and the faith and the trust in themselves to embrace that goddess within, or, authentic source self within. That's my hope. Anyway, that's the focus I feel of our work. You and your art. Your art is so light encoded. I'm always working with energy and frequency, and every time I look at your piece, I can feel your energy and frequency like coming off the canvas and touching me and touching others. I think it really activates and sparks something in the viewer of your art. So thank you for being here at this critical time.
It's never a dull moment. It's such a fascinating time to be alive, and I really celebrate it and am in awe of it. And even in the challenge and the fear that comes up in the collective and in my own body of like the great unknown and changes that are happening so fast. It's just so fascinating. I constantly am reminding myself and others that we are just a tiny speck on a tiny speck hurling through space, spiraling in the great cosmic timeless dance, and we are so ephemeral. This is just an instant. And so as serious as we think this all is, it's also just a flicker in time. And it's also very important and very profound. And I also like simultaneously living in that paradox. I love paradox, by the way. But living in the paradox of like, yes, it is like meaningless and ephemeral and just like fleeting. And it's also the most important moment is here and now on this planet, in this body, in that body, in the trees, in this experience, in this awakening. It will ripple out and is rippling out and affecting the whole universe. True. All of time and space is being affected by our choices and our state here and now. And so both are true. And so where do we need to lean in a little bit? Do we need to cut ourselves some slack and cut each other some slack? Or do we need to focus and get to work and really be the change and be in grace?
100%. It's so important that we are always taking our external reality and really turning inward and paying attention to what is being reflected to us, because we're on this eternal journey. We're on this eternal winding road back to our own soul source self. And one of the lessons that was really powerful for me was to understand that everyone's journey is different, and to allow everyone their process, to allow grace to every choice that everyone makes. Because I think there's this need sometimes to want to bring people into the fold and into your mindset and your way of being and living and thought process. And what has been really freeing for me is just to honor the journey of every person and send them love and allow them to have whatever experience they're choosing to create for themselves, whether it's, seemingly beautiful or tragic or hard or easy or rich or poor or fanatical or accepting. Um, that has been a huge growth thing for me, is just pure acceptance of everyone who's
Yeah.
choosing to have their growth through this experience they're creating, and surrendering any sort of agenda or ego control over an outcome, and not worrying about it if they don't like me or you lose somebody because your paths diverge. Just honoring the time.
Mm.
It's been very freeing to me to get to that place of really unconditional love for humanity,
Mm.
regardless of what's presenting. Um, there's so much judgment out there. I think your art is so beautiful because I just feel so much love coming off of the canvas. I could feel your heart and your pieces, and almost the message you're conveying through that art. It's so powerful. And I wanted to ask you how your art has evolved over time, because you're growing as a person and expressing differently, maybe, or getting higher understanding of something that maybe you looked at 5 years ago. Maybe you would paint differently now because you've changed so much. I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I'd say every painting is like a new unfoldment, and every painting, they say there's like a constant striving and dissatisfaction for artists, because every painting you create, you learn so much from, that if you were to start that painting again, you would paint it totally different. So accepting that and just being present with each piece as it unfolds, and then doing the best you can with the tools you have in that time, and then releasing it into the world and saying, I did the best I could with the tools I have at this time, and now I'm going to paint another painting, and it's going to be another unfoldment of learning. So we're constantly growing. We'll never paint the best painting that we could ever paint. It will just never happen. And so, like, on a skill level, that's definitely been an acceptance of my choice and what seems to flow out and through my being, is sort of a magic realism, highly detailed, refined process. I look at abstract impressionists and I'm just like, oh, that looks dreamy. How wonderful it would be to just splash some colors on and let things drip and be
You have
free and
such
flowy. But
fine detail in your
yeah,
work.
here I am, like smothering like every inch with highly refined detail. Like the painting behind me is like
Yes.
every inch is covered in woven braided hair and interlaced fingers. And
Yes.
but
It's
that seems to
incredible.
be what authentically wants to come through me at this time. And so it's a matter of listening to the painting. And yes, the evolution of my work has just been a constant one, and there are themes that reoccur, and themes that sort of carry through, like the human form, and especially the feminine form, though I'm having more masculine themes weaving through here and there as well these days. Yeah, energetics, mysticism, archetypes, animals, glowy magical space orbs, those kind of things definitely seem to come through. And really it is a listening. The process of creating is very much about paying attention, feeling ideas in my body, and just trusting the process. And sometimes big surprises come late in the journey of a painting, and they just feel right. Like I was talking about with this, adding red to this black and white painting of, just being okay. I'm curious, I'm open, I trust. And in the grand scheme of things, it's just colorful mud smeared on a piece of fabric. It's not that big of a deal. I could easily have spent a couple hundred hours binging on Netflix or doing whatever, or sitting
Yeah.
in an airport, or it's not like my time is the most, like, yes, it is one of the most important things, but it's like that it's all a process. And even by creating this painting, the process of doing so is this process of joy and meditation and presence and play and curiosity and diligence and focus. And so that ripples out and ripples through my body, even regardless of the material product at the end of that journey. So these risks, I have to remind myself, remind my students, sit with every moment that like spirit calls me to like take a leap of faith, is sitting with that knowing that it's not that big of deal. And maybe it messes up the whole thing. Maybe I wreck my painting by taking this. But
I don't think that's
like we
possible,
talked about,
but if you think it
exactly,
might be.
that's like, but this is the fear, right? This is like the idea of like, oh gosh, here I am. I'm going to like take this leap of faith. I might wreck my painting. It's like, that's what the voice says. That's what like the little like judgmental
That's
voice
that
in the
little
mind that
ego
says,
one
oh, don't do
trying to
that. Like
get in there.
like play it safe. Like, what are you thinking? Just keep it pretty.
Mm.
And so yeah, it's like my husband asked, he's like, so when you put the red on, are you gonna like have a wet cloth and be ready to wipe it off again?
You don't need to hear that when
he's like, he's like echoing. I'm like, yeah, maybe. But I also like, I'm gonna do some tests and like get the color just right and get the like consistency of the paint just right. I'm gonna use like, I'm gonna go into it with my eyes open and like pay like wide awake. I'm not gonna do it late at night. Yeah, we're just gonna see what happens, and I'm gonna stay curious to the unfolding of that, and maybe it'll be a quote unquote mistake, and maybe a door will be flung open and a grand vista presented to me that I would never have guessed. So no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be better than okay. It's going to be extraordinary, even if it means that I maybe make a bit of a mess on this one specific panel.
I love. Who are some of the most influential and supportive people on your journey? I know you mentioned that high school teacher. You know how we come to these nexus points in our lives and just that right, perfect person comes into our life and kind of propels us forward a little bit. Were there any standout, mentors or friends or teachers that really influenced your direction in some way?
My whole life has been just a chorus of cheerleaders. I'm so blessed. So my family, for the most part, is just like, I have a very creative family, very musical, and then also visually creative, and yeah, just very, very loving and supportive. And then, yeah, all through school, my friends and like people would just hover over my shoulder and get me to help them with their projects. And there was always this cheerleading. And so I wouldn't say that necessarily like, yes, I had this like knowing as a child and I had this drive and this focus and this interest, but I wouldn't say that I was like a particularly like spectacularly gifted artist as a child. Like my childhood drawings look like other kids' childhood drawings. They're like, I started with stick people and then I was like, oh, eyelashes, oh, nostrils, okay. And like I developed my seeing in the same trajectory that other people do. It's not that I'm like implanted virtuoso, but the fact that I was always encouraged, I'd say was my motivator. Just like, any positive feedback is going to help any like child or any human or any pet that you're trying to train. Like positive feedback is a great teacher. And even with ourselves, they've done studies where self-compassion is highly motivated compared to self-criticism. And it goes for others as well. And so when we can be like, oh, that's it, but like that was an interesting choice, I'll keep going. I think I can do even better. It's much better than, that sucks, I'm going to quit. So this encouragement throughout, and then everyone, my husband is so supportive, and my family, and like and all my friends, and then meeting the visionary art culture, the community of visionary artists back in 2009, connecting with a lot of like the festival artists and the sort of movement of spiritual art. has been a beautiful journey as well, in just seeing that there's a family available there of mutual celebration. Like we really see each other in all of the unique ways that we show up and celebrate in each other's growth and victories, and it's a wonderful thing to witness.
Community is so important, don't you
Mm.
think? Just community to cheer for each other, love each other, hold space when people are going through something difficult. I just feel like you have such a beautiful community, and it sounds like you've had one from the beginning. Sometimes that seed is planted, but it needs to be fertilized and watered and nurtured and have the right conditions to really grow into its fullness.
Yeah, and allowing for the ebb and flow, like you were talking about, of allowing, people, when we're kids, we think that our best friends are going to be our best friends forever. Or in high school, it's like, these are my friends forever. And then inevitably interests shift, or ideals shift, or people move away, and there's the ebb and flow of relationship and ebb and flow of connectivity and community, and really allowing for that, and not being hung up on it always looking the same, or being hung up on it always being external. I think that the concept of like inner community is also available there. We have all of the people that came before us. We have all of our cells and our organs and our higher spirits and guides, and we have a whole symphony and tapestry of support. We have the trees around us, we have the birds, we have the earth, we have the stars. And so it's available, even if we don't have, like, I don't take for granted the fact that I had a very supportive family. I know that is rare when it comes to art. And so part of my great mission in this life, besides painting and like the diligence of creating my own pieces isolated in my studio, part of my mission is to teach and to support and empower others on their creative journey. And so to be the cheerleader that maybe they never had, and to teach them to be their own cheerleader so that they can overwrite the voices that they've adopted from society or from family or from their own harsh inner critic, to overwrite that with compassion and encouragement and support, and so that they can follow the creative thread and see what makes them come alive, and amaze themselves at what they're capable of, with patience and persistence and humor and curiosity.
Do you have workshops mostly in BC where you live, or do you travel and give workshops? I'm just curious about your teaching. Do you do things online? Do you have a community that you meet with regularly in your hometown, or how does that
all
work?
of the things?
All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah. For many years, for the last 12 years or so, I've traveled internationally and taught, usually 2 times a year or 3 times a year, teaching. I worked with Una of Bella Retreats for many years. We did the Soul Portraits retreats, and that traveled around the world. We did 9 different locations for that, and
that must have been
Bali
incredible.
and Mexico and Hawaii and
wow.
Yeah, Italy and Australia. Yeah, it was amazing, so beautiful. And now my husband and I are cultivating a beautiful property in British Columbia here, and starting to host retreats here on the land. So that's really exciting, after many years of traveling and sort of going out into the world, to start to bring
it back,
bring people to me, and to be able to really like host in this beautiful studio that we spent a year building or renovating from an old boat shed, is now a beautiful big studio that can hold people, and the land is just really like, it just shines. So we've hosted 3 retreats on the land so far, and it's beautiful to do so. And I'll continue to travel as well. I have another retreat at Hollyhock, which is an amazing legendary retreat center on Cortez Island here in British Columbia. That's in October. And then, yeah, I've been people have been like, oh, come back to Australia or come back to Hawaii or yeah, so
You're like,
there'll
why
always
don't
be
you come
more.
to me?
Yeah. Are you on the Big Island, did you say?
Um, I I lived on the Big Island. My children were born on the Big Island, but now I live in Houston, Texas. But I was
Okay,
born
well,
in Hawaii, so
okay. I actually, yeah, Texas has been on my radar for sure. And yeah, maybe
come to
it'll happen. So,
Houston. Come to Houston. I would love to host you.
wonderful. We'll definitely
We'll
talk about
talk.
that.
We'll talk more about where can people find your art? Where can people find you, connect with you, Autumn?
Mostly Instagram is my sort of most active, and everything I share on Instagram, I also share to my Facebook art page. So both are under the name Autumn Skye Art. That's Skye with an E, Skye, like the island.
Mhm.
And yeah, so Instagram and Facebook is where you'll see like a lot of my progress shots and videos and things. I also have my website is also autumnskyeart.com. And yeah, you just find me. I'm out there and trying to navigate the wild world of social media while also trying to keep my focus in the reality in front of me and not be totally absorbed into my devices. But
Yeah,
it's definitely a balance point of that in breath, out breath. And it's so wonderful to see the community, the online community continue to grow and people's feedback and just really like sharing some insights into the process and trying to encourage and empower people through like demystifying, like by showing some process. The process is like you sort of take away the mystery. The magic remains in the creative process because it's a magical psychedelic experience to watch things appear.
mhm.
um, but the mystery, you can see through that part a little bit more and feel more empowered in your own creative process. So that I really love to share those sort of those like time lapses
That's so
and
cool.
ideas.
What do you do for balance? Like, how do you find balance? I know creativity is just such a innate part of your life, but I know sometimes you have to step away from the canvas and get out in nature, or, what do you do to bring and invite balance into your life?
Hmm. Um, Breathe.
Mm.
that's
To
a that's
start.
a key. I've grown up in nature. I grew up like in the woods by the ocean. So, and I've only for a few years that I live in cities. So even now, looking at the windows of my studio, there are trees and sunshine and flowers and birds flying, and spring is springing here in British Columbia. So it's really exciting to see all the new growth and all the like bright greens coming out and hear the trickle of the stream on our land. And that really brings me into the present, is experiencing that. Yeah, so trying to be outside and be in nature and and then yeah, it's like a constant learning and like acceptance that I need to get on the train of exercise and like mindful body awareness, because I was I was blessed with healthy genes, and so I haven't really had to do much, and I'm turning 40 this year, so I'm like, okay, I get it, I gotta like
Fun.
do stretches and and
Do some
like
yoga.
some exercise, I guess. Um, but I like grew up. My dad worked for Parks Canada, like maintaining trails in in the Rocky Mountains, some of the
That's
most
amazing.
beautiful locations, like top 3 hikes in the world. And so I
Wow.
used to get dragged on these hikes, like 3-day hike. Okay, we're going to Lake O'Hara, like, and even though like they sit on a like waiting list for 4 years to get to visit Lake O'Hara, and this is like I'm being dragged there. And so I'm like now I'm cultivating this like, oh, actually I really like walking in the forest, and
Yeah.
it's returning.
I love that. I was just thinking, when you're in this creative zone, that just hours could probably pass by. And
Oh
then
yeah.
you've been like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat lunch. I've just been so immersed in the work. So that's why I asked. I was
Yeah,
wondering if it's difficult to just because you lose track of time to pull yourself away and do something else.
it definitely, like my happy place is like 15-hour painting day. But
Wow,
also am
15
a,
hours.
yeah, just like it's a very it's a definitely a process of patience and presence. And but I also am a strong believer of 8 to 9 hours of sleep and eating healthy. I feed myself well. We eat, as healthy as possible. And so I also am a strong believer in the self-care that's necessary for cultivating a 15-hour painting day. And I don't always get a 15-hour painting day. Sometimes it's 6 or even 3, and that's fine. And there's always going to be this sort of ebb and flow. I'm not a strong adherer to routine. Some people work great with routine. I'm not that person, and so I follow that internal compass of like, okay, what's today? Oh, today is I'm making pesto. Okay, that's where my day goes.
I
Or
love it.
today I'm answering emails. That's where my day goes. Or today I'm going to paint and focus. Or today I'm going to go help my mom stack firewood. Or,
You live
these
close to
various,
your family?
yeah.
Do you live close to your siblings or parents or
Yeah, my mom and stepdad live 15 minutes away. And
nice?
that's wonderful. So it's nice to have them close and be able to feel that um,
That
yeah,
touched
that
me.
connection. And yeah, I have a really really beautiful friendship with my mom, so that's
Oh,
wonderful. And
love
my
that.
husband is from Scotland, so his family's all still back in Scotland, so it's really nice for him to also have this sort of new family
Yeah.
that has
You guys
embraced
get
him.
back there to visit ever?
uh,
Or
Not yet. He hasn't been back in a few years. They came out for our wedding last year, so
oh, that must have
it
been so fun.
was so fun. We love a good party.
I could tell. I saw some of the pictures on your Instagram. Um, I know we're winding down on time. I wanted to ask you. You're so wise. You have such this beautiful energy and cosmic divine mother kind of energy about you. I was wondering if you could maybe share something that has really helped you in your life in times of stress and struggle. You have probably some tools in your toolbox, maybe that you could share with people who are tuning in that have kind of really been kind of like a compass and guidepost for you.
Hmm. Humor is a big one. Keep your sense of humor, keep your curiosity. That really helps me. I like really cheesy dad jokes. um, but
Um,
yeah, on a more serious note, like really faith in the grand arc of the creative process and of our lives and of humanity and of the cosmos. It's this microcosm, macrocosm storyline
mhm.
um, that has a story arc, and to really have faith that we're on a journey and we don't have to understand where we're going in every moment. They say that hindsight is 2020. And so if we can take the faith that we will have that future understanding and bring it into the present moment, it can become trust and faith and peace in this moment. So the creative process has taught me this. And anybody that has a creative practice or a practice of any kind, whether it's meditation or music or any kind of practice, you know that the fruit of that practice is in your edges. It's in the moments where it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's in the moments where our body's speaking to us, or our mind is caught up in stories, or it's a bit of a struggle. And when we can claim our peace and relax into that moment, even without having to have everything in a tidy bundle and know exactly all of the whys, there's a grace there that's available that I think reminds us that it's a journey. And just like with any journey, if we think of the journey of our lives, why would we want to rush to the punchline?
Mm-hmm.
Don't we want to savor every moment? Nobody on their deathbed lays there and says, "Oh, I wish I'd got here sooner."
Right.
They're going to say, "Oh man, I'm so grateful for all the little moments that I thought were so meaningless." Or I wish I'd paid more attention.
Right.
I wish I'd played more.
Mm-hmm.
Wish I'd savored more.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where we're at now, is like we're on the journey. We're hiking up the mountain. And yes, there's going to be an amazing vista at the end, the punchline of our lives. There's going to be an amazing, even like the completion of a painting. It's all the same storyline. So yes, at the summit of that mountain, we will have this new understanding and this grand awakening, this grand realization and enlightenment, and it will all make sense. But all the way along the path up the mountain, we're seeing these beautiful little vignettes, these beautiful little scenes, and we're gathering information as we go. And when we get to the top, we'll be able to see all the vignettes that we had seen all along the way, all stitched into one seamless horizon. But we don't need to rush there. Just like I don't need to rush to the end of a painting. I just need to stay present with, what am I painting today? I'm painting fingernails. Okay, what am I painting tomorrow? I'm going to paint, knuckles and nostrils. Like, it's all delightful. And what am I doing today? I'm doing the laundry. Right. How wonderful is that? How funny that is on this like spiritual journey that, and I'm like folding napkins and balling socks. Like, right. Okay. And can I keep my humor? Can I keep my faith? And can I breathe into this moment and know that it's all being stitched in this like great tapestry, this great seamless vista?
Love that. Autumn, it's been such an honor having you today. Thank you so much for sharing your sacred time, your wisdom, your guidance with all of us. And to my audience, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Love yourselves, honor yourselves, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Wendy. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I'm so grateful. So good to meet you.